Hi everybody, welcome to my kitchen. I love to bake bread, and my friends know that because oftentimes when I get invited to a dinner party and I'll say, what can I bring? They say, bring bread. And I love to bring bread. It's one of my favorite things to do. So what I'm going to do today is show you how I make a sourdough loaf. Now I don't leaven with the sourdough because I'm not that patient, but it has a really nice flavor. Let's get started. So for my sourdough starter, I have my discards, which is what we're going to use to flavor the bread. And then I have a half cup here. This will be what we use to feed the starter and keep it all going. Now, I'm going to need a half a cup of warm water, which is not that hard to come by. And in that, I'm going to put a tablespoon of raw sugar, just regular warm tap water, nothing special about that. So we'll put in a tablespoon of the raw sugar, and then we'll just kind of whisk that until it at least partially dissolves. That's pretty good. Now we'll put in a tablespoon of active dry yeast and give that a bit of a whisk. And of course that's going to wake up the yeast and make it start to produce all of those little fun CO2 bubbles that will turn it into a nice fluffy risen bread. Okay, we're going to set that aside and let that bloom and get a cup of warm water. And I'm going to make buttermilk. So how are you going to make buttermilk? I hear you cry. Well, this is powdered buttermilk, and it's wonderful stuff. Because if you're like me and you don't use a lot of buttermilk, you can't ever use up, you can't buy it in small quantities anymore. You can, the smallest buttermilk you can buy these days seems to be a pint. And it takes me forever to use a pint of buttermilk because I don't cook with it all that often. So the powdered buttermilk is very shelf stable, lives in the refrigerator. I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of powdered buttermilk to a cup of water and give that a nice stir. Get it all good and dissolved. And then into that, we will put 1 large chicken egg. And what the egg does is it just gives the bread a little bit nicer texture, I think. And so I'll take a fork now and I'll just get that egg beaten up in the buttermilk. So there we are, just about ready with the wet team. So this is my workhorse KitchenAid mixer. I've had this with me for I don't know how many years, but it's been a long, long time. And what we're going to do is we're going to start by putting 5 cups of all-purpose flour into the mixer. So get my cup measure. We're going to use what they call the scoop and scrape method. So we'll just scrape that off, and there's 1, and there's 2, there's 3, 4 going here, And hopefully there's enough left in there to get 5. And there is. I'm going to have to add more flour to my bin before I go to feed my sourdough starter. But we'll take care of that in just a little bit. So not much else goes on the dry team here. I'm going to get a teaspoon of kosher salt. And I'm going to add in some of this, I don't know if I should, I don't care. I like this stuff. It's garlic and Parmesan seasoning. I use it in a lot of things in my cooking. And I'm just going to take some of that and throw it in there just to give the bread a little bit of different flavor. A little cheesy, a little garlicky. And then I'll put on my whisk attachment and just let that go for a few seconds. This has kind of the same effect as sifting the flour and all of those ingredients together. So we're just going to let that go for just a moment. And then we'll move on to the wet team. I love it when the yeast blooms because you can just see when it starts to really start to work. And that is just getting started. Look at that. You can see those coming up. Really fascinating to watch. And that'll be ready in just another couple of minutes. Okay, my yeast is ready to go. I've got my dry ingredients in the bowl, and it's time to start putting it together. So I'm going to start with the sourdough discards, and this is all just for flavor. This is not to actually leaven the bread, because quite frankly, I am too impatient to wait the day or so that it takes to have sourdough leavened bread. But it does make it taste very good. Now we will add our bloomed yeast. Goes right in there. Get a little scraper and make sure we get as much of that out. Now I'm going to leave some of that residue in the measuring cup because I'm going to use the measuring cup to measure out water when I feed the sourdough. That will help give it just a little bit of an extra boost. Okay, now we've got the buttermilk mixture. It goes right in there. And we'll get that going. And finally, about 2 tablespoons of melted butter, just because I like it. And it again gives the bread a little bit of a nicer texture and adds a little buttery flavor. Now, dough hook. This is my nod to modern technology because I don't want to sit here for as long as it might take and try to knead this dough by hand when I can do, when I have technology at my disposal. So now while that's kneading, I'm going to go ahead and feed my sourdough starter. And we've kept this sourdough starter going for 4 or 5 years now, I think. I did kill one, and we had to start over again from scratch. But King Arthur sends you a sourdough starter kit through the mail and tells you how to feed it and do all of that. So it's really easy to do sourdough starter and keep it going. And it can live in the refrigerator. That's pretty important, so you don't have to do this every day. So here's what we're going to do. I've got a half a cup of the sourdough starter. I'm going to get a half a cup of warm water. Actually a little bit more than that. We're going to go to about 2/3 of a cup of warm water, just to make sure that I keep enough of the sourdough starter. Sometimes I've found myself in a position where I didn't have enough. And so I try to just get this going a little bit extra. And we need a scant cup of all-purpose flour. So, you recall we did the scratch and scoop method, or the scratch and scoop, the scoop and scrape method before. I'm just going to get have it look like it's sort of a cup. And we're going to put that right there in the crock. I said scratch because the automatic cat feeder just went off. So here's the warm water, And this has got some of that yeast left over in it from where we made the yeast before. And then we just put the active sourdough starter in there. And we'll scrape that off a little bit. I always do this with a wooden spoon, and I don't know why. I read somewhere, I think, that it's better if you do it with a wooden spoon. You can probably use something silicone. But we're just going to stir that up. It's going to be lumpy. Don't worry about it. You can't get it smooth like this. But as that sourdough starter works, it will rehydrate all of that flour, and it will get all of those lumps out. So we're just going to do that to where we got, and I've tasted this. I wouldn't recommend it because it's, they call it sourdough for a reason. But we'll get that off the spoon. We'll get that right in there. Rinse off my hands before I pick up the camera. But that is going to look like that. So you can see how that looks in the crock. And then it's a very simple thing. Let's tilt that down a little bit. Just lid it up, sit it on the counter, and I'll let that sit there for most of the rest of the day just to get it all good and working. It'll bubble up and be real yeasty and bubbly. Then I'll put it in the refrigerator and forget about it for 2 weeks until I make bread again. So I've had to add a little bit of extra flour to the bowl because, as you can see, I bring this over here. The dough still looks a little on the soft side, and I want it to clean the sides of the bowl. So let me just get another tablespoon of flour in there. So now you see where the dough ball is cleaning the sides of the bowl pretty well. So we're just going to keep that, let that keep on kneading for a while, and then we'll be ready to put it on for its first rise. Okay, I think we're just about done kneading here. So what I'm going to do is I'll just shut that off. It'll get a little bit quieter here in the kitchen. And you can see we've got, your dough ball may be just a little sticky, but that's okay. Now this big yellow crock that you see here, this was Dad's. My dad used to bake bread when I was a kid, and it's kind of one of the things that really got me interested in trying to do it myself. And I've got a couple of his recipes. I've got a recipe for challah, which I haven't made for a long time. But he used to rise challah, and he's been gone for 25 years. May he rest in peace. In that very crock right there. So we have a really nice dough ball. There's almost, I mean, you can't really tell how it feels, but it's just a little bit sticky. It's nice and flexible. I'll put it there in the crock. Now what I've done is I've sprayed the inside of the crock with cooking spray. I use a butter flavored cooking spray to do that. Just because that was kind of what came first to hand, and I didn't want it to taste like olive oil this time. So we've got that. I'll get some plastic wrap, and we will cover this tightly, like so. And we'll take it to rise. Now, we all know that bread wants to rise somewhere warm. I fortunately live in Florida, so we have the perfect spot. So this is my sunroom out here on the back of my house. And today it happens to be about 85 degrees out, which is a perfect environment for bread dough. So there you go, tightly covered out here. We're going to let that sit for about 90 minutes, and then we'll go on to step 2. So here we go. We are an hour and a half into the rise, and let me just kind of bring this over here so you can see we have a very well risen bowl of bread dough. Look at that. That is just about as good as it gets. So that's how we wanted that to look. Let me put this back over here so you can kind of see what's going on. And what I'm going to do now is take the dough and turn it out onto my breadboard. See how nice and clean that came out? And I'm just going to work this a little bit. And get it all set. Boy, that's nice and warm. To be divided like that. Now, I also have, and I'll do this again, my kitchen scale is right here. I've got a plate on it. So I'm going to go ahead and tear that out. And this is how I'm going to get very even pieces of dough. So, got my handy little, that's one of the most versatile tools you can have in your kitchen. I'll promise you that all day long. I love this thing. So we're going to try and get this as close to being exactly in half as I can. And we'll just cut that dough ball in half and let's see how we did. Put that on the scale. That's 1 pound and 12.3 ounces. And that one is 1 pound and 9 ounces. So I'm going to just take a little bit of this one and put it on that one. That's now 1 pound and 10 ounces. And this one is now 1 pound and 11 ounces. So let's get a little bit more like that. And that one's 1 pound 10.9, and this one is 1 pound 10.8. Doesn't get much closer than that. So now I just got to get all that extra dough incorporated back in there, and we're going to make loaves out of this. So I'll flatten that out. I'm going to go ahead and tilt this down a little bit so you can kind of see where I'm going with this. But I'm going to flatten this out. You see some of those good herbs and such I put in there? And turn it over and just roll it right like that so it gets a nice seam on the bottom. Okay? That's all good. Let's get this other one and we'll do the same thing. We'll flatten it out like that. Kind of all shaped. And then we'll take and we'll just roll it up on itself like that. Put underneath a little bit so it makes some decent types of loaves. Now, over here on this counter, I have prepared 2 loaf pans, and I've used Baker's Secret, which will keep the loaves from sticking. So let me tilt this down just a little bit more. And we'll just take these and we'll drop them in the pans like this. trust me, when those rise, they will fill out those pans. So that one goes in like that. And now I'm going to come over here and get, this is a tea towel. It's a very lightweight linen. And we're going to need that because we're going to take, let me turn this around so I can talk to you. We're going to take these loaves and we're going to take them back out onto the sun porch. So we made a quick run to the store and look at that. That's how those are supposed to look. Now I'm going to go ahead and leave those out here, and it is time to preheat the oven to 425 degrees. That is going to take a while. So we'll come back when it's time to put the bread in the oven and go from there. So the oven is hot. You can see I'm at 425. And I brought the loaves in. Now, before we can get those in the oven, I'm going to move those towels out of the way because I'm using the lower oven here. I'm going to spray the tops of these with just a little regular water. Just a regular water bottle, and that'll help keep that crust a little bit moist. So let me take this like that, and here we go into the center of a 425 degree oven. Put those in like that. And we're going to set a timer for 22 minutes. Then we'll turn the loaves and do it for 22 more. Okay, so the first round is done. So I'm going to grab, thank you, a piece of aluminum foil. And then we're going to come down here and we're going to look at how beautiful those are. I'm going to turn them just 180 degrees so that they will bake evenly. And then get a piece of aluminum foil and put that over the top of the loaves. It's a little hot, so be careful, so that they don't over brown. Then we'll put those right back in, close the oven, and we will set our timer for another 22 minutes. Well, it's time for the big unveil. And this is always my favorite part because I love seeing it come out of the oven. Drum roll, please. Here we have what look like two nearly perfect loaves of bread. I like that. Now, what I need to do is take its temperature because we want to see an internal temperature of 202 degrees. So we'll just kind of go right in down through there. And there we have 202 degrees. So that bread is done. Now the last obviously thing to do, as we'll zip out on the zoom there, is turn them out onto the cooling racks. And this is where Andy always gets a little bit upset because I don't let her cut it until it's completely cooled. But you can see where that the Baker's Joy just lets that turn out so nice and slick. It just never sticks to the pan. And that's how I bake a loaf of bread or two. Again, one of my favorite things to do. Thanks for watching. As I'm sure you know, there are a lot of different things that you can do with this basic loaf. I oftentimes will substitute in a couple of cups of whole wheat flour for some of the all-purpose flour. It puts a real nice nutty whole wheat flavor to it and a really great color and texture as well. As you saw, I put in some nice herbs, and there's even a little Parmesan cheese in what I put into this loaf, which really makes for a nice aroma when you toast it and gives it a little bit of extra flavor. So a lot of different things that you can do. Baking bread is more science than art. As long as you get your ratios right and understand the science behind what's going on, you can make a really, really nice loaf of bread. So I hope that watching a video like this gives you a little bit of inspiration to give it a try. There are a lot more easy recipes than what I just showed you today that when I make another video, maybe I'll go back and do something a little bit more basic. But please give it a shot. You'll enjoy it. I know I haven't bought a loaf of bread probably in over a year because I really love making my own, and you will too. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed making it for you, and I'll see you next time.